I suppose there doesn't need to be an entire video on how to hide in a locker in Fortnite, but here I am making it, so here you go. Hey everyone, this is Syntax, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make the locker hiding spot in Fortnite Creative. So let's just get into it. So I am back on my most recent horror map, my Cartoon Cat map, and in this map there is a mechanic that allows you to hide in a custom-made locker when Cartoon Cat is near you, or just hide in it whenever you want. And I'm just going to be walking you guys through how to build the locker and all the mechanics you need to set up and all the devices you need in order to make this work. Now the first and most important thing is probably your design of the locker, because the player has to fit inside of it. So whatever you use, just make sure the player can actually fit inside of the locker. Now if you head to galleries and select props, the prop that I actually use can be found in the rig prop gallery right here. If we head almost all the way down, there is this metal piece right here. Now by default this thing is actually pretty large, but when you shrink it down to, you know, like a solid size, this is what actually makes up the floor, the walls, and the ceiling. So when you're making your locker, this will be, you know, you can turn it so that this is the floor, and then I guess this isn't really a square, but you make it a square, and then you surround it with walls, and then you put the exact same thing over your head. And when you do all that, I'm not going to go through the exact measurements because I'm not even going to act like I know what they are, but when you do all that, you get this kind of locker shape that I guess if I try and fly into it and just stay here, you can see that I fit very nicely inside of it. Now the next piece that I used, it was used for the little 3 grooves that you can see in the locker, and it's found in Industrial Gallery A. Basically, you go over one, down one. It is this piece right here. It's the little like roadblock you would put it where cars park, but you basically just take this and like shrink it down quite a bit, and I'll like line it up so you guys can see. But as you can see, I kind of just like layered it, and by the way, this whole thing is pretty much 32 snapped except for when I set the door off open, but the whole thing is 32 snapped. So you just set these and kind of groove them in the middle of the locker. Well, not in the middle, slightly above, but you put 3 of them and kind of line them up like that, and then you grow them to a much larger size. And you can see I put 2 of them. You can see the first one right there and the second one right there. That is to create the size of the locker. So as you can see, it goes up, straight up and down vertical, and this one also goes straight up and down vertical. Now what I actually did first was built the closed version of the locker. You can see that this version is actually closed, and I'll get to why there's a closed version in a sec, but it might be easier for you to just put the front on, like actually on the locker before actually opening it, so it's easier to build. But yeah, there's only 2 more pieces, so let's just look at those real quick. Now to be perfectly honest, there are probably better pieces you could use for this, but I just wanted to keep a metal look, and I couldn't find anything that would get small enough, so I just used the stuff from the Tilted Prop Gallery. If you head to the Neo Tilted Prop Gallery, go ahead and open it up. It is actually bathroom signs. I believe I used this one right here. Maybe? I actually just selected the piece, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it out here. As you can see, it is a flipped upside down restroom sign. It's not perfectly square, so I actually hid where it kind of slants down. I hid this in the ground. You can actually see it slightly poking to the ground right here. Yeah, you see that right there? That's part of the bathroom sign. But if you can find something flatter, just find a piece of metal, and you basically want to split it up into 2 pieces. Obviously a piece up here that is much smaller and quite a longer piece, just so that it reaches the bottom of the locker and the top of the locker. Once you've properly assembled those 3 pieces, those 2 metal pieces, and then the concrete for the grooves, you will have a nice looking locker. Now what I did, like I said, is built the closed version first, and then I took the door and actually free snapped it. I didn't 32 snap it at all, and I just created an open version of the locker, because you will need an open and a closed version. But as you can see, I just kind of set the door off to the side like this. It doesn't look perfect, but it looks good enough, so I mean that's really all I'm going for. Okay, now the fun part, the hide mechanics. For this part you actually have to head over to devices and grab 2 buttons and 2 rifts. So there's your rifts, teleporters, and there is your buttons. So if we look at the settings for this button, these are actually the settings for the open locker button. So this is the open version of the locker. Interaction time is instant. You can set it to have it be a certain time if you want them to like hold it to hide. Time can trigger is infinite. Doesn't have to be. You can just make them hide once and then they're done. But I would set it to infinite just because. Delay and reset delay set to none. Enable the game start. Mine's disabled for reasons so the map plays well, but you can just have yours enabled. Make sure the trigger sound isn't enabled. And my interaction text is obviously hide because that's what I'm going to be doing. Turn the visibility off. I made the interaction radius 1 meter because, you know, it fits the locker nicely. As you can see, it kind of surrounds it well, but you just make it appropriate to, I guess, how large you want the interaction radius to be, and just have it, when interacted with, transmit on a certain channel. So for me, it's 38. Now, this next part is actually kind of frustrating because you have to fit a rift inside the locker to the point where it won't spawn block the player. So you have to make sure that when you click that button, it sends a signal to the rift and you can actually teleport in there, like you're not being blocked by any props. I probably had to try 5 or 6 times before I actually got it placed properly, but just mess around with it. It's really finicky. Make sure you can stand inside of it first so you know it's possible to get in there, and then just mess around with where the rift is going to be placed. Anyway, the settings for the rift, teleporter group none, teleporter target group none, enable during phase all, of course, and you want to have all this set to no, rift visible, all the effects and the momentum set to no, and you want to face the player in the teleporter direction. So I have the direction facing so that when you go into the locker, you're looking out. And you'll see it in the trailer if you go watch the trailer. I might show some gameplay later, but have it so that when you go into the teleporter, that little line on the teleporter is facing out of the locker. So when you go in, you're looking out. And obviously you want to have teleport to when receiving from the same channel our button is set on, which is channel 38. Now, the next part is actually probably the easiest. You just take another button. As you can see, it is set out in front here. It's the exact same settings as our first button, but the interaction text this time is stop hiding, because obviously we'd be stopping hiding. Visible during game, no. Interaction radius, it's the same. And this just sends on a separate channel for me. It's the following channel, which is 39. And what this does is it sends to an identical rift up here, which is right here, and it teleports me back out in front of the locker. And as you can see, it's all the same settings except for teleport to when receiving from the same channel. Our stop hiding button is on. Now, if you're confused as to why there's 2 copies, it's because there's no way to actually get in this locker and close the door. So you have to create the illusion that the player is actually closing the door. So what I did was I took this area and then I copied it down to here, and I got in the closed version of the locker. As you can see, I hopped in here and I took a look at what I could actually see. Well, I can't see much right now because the button's in the way, but take a look at what you can see in terms of your surroundings. As you can see, obviously this is like the fully built area of the basement, but if you look right here, I've only copied over everything you can see. So once we hit this wall, there's nothing here, there's no kitchen, it stops going past there. Make sure the lighting is the same, and there's no elevator. Only copy the area that the player will be able to see, otherwise you're wasting memory. But when you do that, you're having a button that sends a signal to the closed version, so you're getting sent to this copy, which makes it look like you just closed the door when really it's just a copy of the room, and then your button is sending you back to the original version. And if you did all that right and everything works smoothly, you should have a locker that you are able to hide in. Anyway guys, there you have it. That is how you make the locker hiding spot in Fortnite Creative. Just remember, you create a copy of the room, have an open and closed version of the locker, and you're having buttons that are hide and stop hiding, send signals to opposing teleporters that send you into the copy of the room and to the original room. And that is basically it. It's a really super simple mechanic, awesome for horror maps, awesome for any map that you just have a hiding spot. It's really good. Anyway, I hope this video helped you out, and yeah, this has been Syntax. Later.